Hi, welcome to Parent Academy Real Talk on mental health awareness. I'm Mary Beth Stapleton, Manager of Family and Community Partnerships, here with Angela Gray, who is the Youth Services Director for the Office on Mental Health. Thanks for being here today.
You're welcome, Mary Beth. Thanks for having me.
And Christina, Alton, who supervises our school social workers and our mental health program in our schools. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
As always. Well, thanks for being here and thanks for talking with parents about mental health. We want to raise awareness for parents about the importance of mental health and really just thinking about that, why is it so important for parents to understand about mental health? We know physical health is a priority for parents, but let's talk a little bit about mental health. Why is that a priority, or should it be?
Absolutely. So parents should learn more about mental health because mental health is health. Taking care of our brains and learning coping strategies to manage stress is just as important as brushing your teeth twice a day and going to the doctor. When parents engage in conversations around mental health with their children, they reduce stigma, they promote transparency, they promote healthy coping strategies. So by having these conversations with their children, when children may have concerns, they are more likely to come to their parents and seek help when it's needed.
And that said, I know as a parent, sometimes, at least years ago, there used to be stigma around talking about it as a family, because there was a feeling there was something wrong with you as a parent or your family. Look, we all have struggles. We all mess up as parents. So just really sounds like you're just trying to affirm for parents, go ahead and talk about it. Really be open, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just as important. Taking care of our mental well-being is just as important as it is part of staying physically healthy.
Physical health and mental health. So thinking about that with symptoms, right? So, our children are emotional, right? They have their ups and downs. Friends are, on the doing great. Sometimes they're not. Just how do we know that there's an issue, right? That there's something that is just kind of an alert, like, okay, you got to really talk to somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I remember my daughter's pediatrician told me, development is on a continuum. And so there's, expected milestones, all of those things, and they are a continuum. It might happen for some kids at 8 months, maybe 10, and that's all typical. So when we think of typicality, I also, as long as your child is thriving and we understand developmentally where they should be, it is completely typical for a teenager to want to spend more time in their room alone, talking to friends and doing things on their own. It's very typical, something that we expect. But when, let's say, that same teenager is isolating, not talking to friends, quitting activities that they previously were engaged in, that's not necessarily typical. And so then maybe we are concerned, but it starts with what Angela said, a conversation with your child. This is something I noticed. Can you talk to me? Are you okay? Because it could just be there. It's situational. Maybe they're having trouble with a friend. Maybe something upsetting did happen and they didn't share it. So I think we have to have an understanding somewhat of what typical development looks like for our children at the various stages. And then an idea of maybe what's outside of that typical development for them, and talk to those resources, your pediatrician, other friends, and folks in our school buildings, our school counselors, psychologists, social workers, who can answer some of those questions for you.
And thinking about that with the symptoms part of it, Angela, just in the continuum, right? Just really what are those kind of red flags for parents? Really just knowing.
I think like what Christina was saying, the biggest thing that parents need to look for in their children is change. Change in their child, change in what is typical for their child. So, change in mood or behavior. Maybe your child is normally a happy kid and they seem more isolated, more withdrawn. Change in their eating, sleeping habits. Maybe they're a kid that always slept through the night and now they're staying up until the, late night of the hours. Change in school performance. Maybe they were a really good student, now they're falling behind or struggling. Change overall in their outlook of life. Maybe they were a kid that had a passion for soccer, lacrosse, a hobby, and now they're not interested. So just change in your child that is significant across their life. And then to have that conversation with your child and ask those questions. Hey, I'm noticing this. what's going on. Let's talk about that.
So if we go down that, path of, okay, I'm noticing it, right? There's a red alert for my family. Something's up. You said pediatrician. Like, where do you start? Because I think that's where parents struggle. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's, healthcare costs, right? So one therapist you've heard is really great, but then you call them and they're like, yeah, no, it's 200 and something for an hour's, consultation. And you're like, I can't do that. So what are some thoughts around where do you start, right?
Well, I think we do want to rule out that if something physical could be wrong.
Okay.
And they could be struggling. I think that's rule of thumb for mental health professionals, that we want to take a look at their physical. I mean, it could be anything for them. So first start with the physical. I mean,
So that means doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
And for me, I'm a mental health professional, but I'm not, the first thing shouldn't be, let's go to therapy.
Okay. 'Cause that means you're diagnosing as a parent and deciding on
Absolutely.
your own. Because you looked on, we all do that, right? We Google
Yep.
symptoms.
Yeah,
And we're like, okay, that's
absolutely.
the situation.
Yeah.
I'm going to diagnose it.
Exactly. Well, and we can look up anything online and fit ourselves into whatever scenario is there.
We all do it.
And again, and I have to think it too, I have to go back to typical development. I think, there's no handbook that comes with being a parent.
No.
And so things, and being a child now is very different than it was when any of the three of us were parents or children. And I think that, so even typical, we have to remind ourselves what that is. That teens are sassy, and none of us like that. They are sassy, but when it's extremely moody and everything that you say to them, and it's very, or that they're pulling back, they don't say anything to you. I'd be more worried about my child if she didn't say anything to me than if she was a little bit sassier than usual. So I think it is reminding ourselves what is typical. What does development look like now? Our children deal with so many more things than we ever dealt with. I think about technology, while it's a wonderful thing, but you can go on Google and say, I have this symptom, and then, they'll find a disease for you. But maybe it is situational. Maybe it's related to something that your child is going through with a friend, with a teacher, with their schoolwork, and it's an easy fix. I worry that we are jumping to therapy for our children very quickly.
Okay.
And there are things that also, you can grow with your child as you help them to navigate those issues. And then if it continues, then certainly look at other intervention. But, just like talking about it as a family, we can solve it as a family. And therapy isn't always the answer. And I say that as a mental health professional.
So that pediatrician could really help kind of figure out where do you start? Yeah.
And I think if you start with your pediatrician and you're not, the things aren't resolving or getting better, there are lots of resources to help families navigate, accessing behavioral health treatment. Care Solace, which is available for Harford County Public School students or teachers, parents. They will really help you navigate finding a therapist if that's something that is needed for your family or your child.
Right. So just so parents know, we have Care Solace where you call and they actually figure out your situation for you, help you find a therapist that you can afford through your insurance, to my point earlier, that's a really great resource for our parents and students and family members. So that's really a great resource. And then thinking about resources in the school, right? I mean, having experienced it as a family in the past, thinking about, I didn't necessarily want to reach out to my child's school. I wanted to kind of keep it private. It just depends on the family and what they want to do. But that said, thinking about, what could the school offer? Who do I reach out to if I'm interested in talking with someone?
So I think a school counselor is a really great place to start. All of our schools have school counselors. And I also think if you're recognizing things or noticing things about your child, reaching out to their teacher as well. Are you seeing the same thing in school? Because, this is something that I see at home, because they're a wealth of information. They see your child all day. And maybe they may validate what you're saying. You know what? Yeah, I did notice a little bit of a change, or, something like that. And even a school counselor too might be able to say, yeah, I've seen your child come in a little bit more often. I was getting ready to call you anyway, just to let you know that. So I think school counselors, but your teachers as well, because they see your child, they see them in stressful situations, they see them in social situations. So while you don't have to reveal all those things that might be going on, just we notice a change, wondering if you see it too. If they say yes, can you tell me more about that? And if they say no, great, but would you mind being on the lookout for that?
Got it.
And I think it's also important to remind our children what the resources are in their school buildings, because we do have school counselors, we have school social workers in some of our buildings, we have school psychologists, and these are all resources that if our kids are struggling, whether it's with a friend or schoolwork, managing their stress over schoolwork, that those are ready people in a building who can help situationally and have a toolbox of things. If your child's struggling with academics and it's creating anxiety for them, they can work on organization and study skills, because sometimes the fix can be that. And they just don't know how to grab onto it. When there's a transition, 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, those are all places where we can utilize those resources that exist in our school, so it doesn't rise to the level of maybe needing intervention from a therapist.
And then thinking about parents themselves, right? So I know as parents, we struggle with our own mental health sometime because of the stress and anxiety and pressure we're under between work and home life. I think it's just affirming for parents that sometimes you have to kind of take care of yourself before you take care of your child.
Absolutely.
So any
100%.
thoughts about resources for adults, right? How do we access resources for ourselves? Same thing.
I think that's really important, but yeah, some of the same things that, Christina talked about, having those conversations, making ourselves a priority, taking mindful minutes, working those things into our routine, into our daily life. And when things are not manageable, reaching out for help and showing your children by modeling that it's okay to reach out for help, to, talk to a therapist or talk to a friend, or, do a walk and talk or a mindful minute or yoga or whatever it is that helps you, ground yourself and manage stress and anxiety.
And modeling, I think, is a great point, because Angela, in the very beginning, when we started talked about mental and physical health. We all have it. And I think you also, when you take those moments as a parent, we teach our kids maybe healthy eating habits, exercise, all of those great things to take care of our physical health. But same with mental health. Is it taking a walk? Is it taking a breath, taking a beat before you say something that you regret, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is for you, and offering those to your child as well. This works for me. I like to listen to music. I like to take a walk. Because I think that again, it's something we model for our children. And, children are famous for saying that we ask them to do things maybe that we don't do. And they will call us out on that. But if I say, you know what, I need a minute, I'm going to take a 5-minute walk. I'm going to, walk around the block and take a minute and take a breath before I handle this. We are modeling that for our children. They watch us all the time, no matter how young or how old they are. They watch how we manage ourselves. And that's so, so important, mentally and physically. If I need to take a break, it's okay for them to take a break too, and it's better for everybody's mental health.
Right. Thank you so much for that, because that's really just a reminder that parents need to take care of themselves. And then just finally, Angela, thinking about, Mental Health Awareness Month, what are you doing, Office of Mental Health, in partnership with the schools? What are we doing together to celebrate, raise awareness, get the message out?
Lots of things going on this month. There's a social media campaign. Green is the color of mental health awareness. Green. So there are lots of buildings in the county that are lighting themselves up green during the month of May. We have a large-scale event that is happening this Friday that is a partnership between Harford County Public Schools and Harford County Health Department and the Klein Family Center. So it's a free event for families to come out, have a good time together, learn more resources about overall, health and wellness. It's at Lidos Field at Ripken Stadium. This Friday from 5:30 until 9. Families should register. We're expecting a nice weather and a good turnout, so hope to see everybody there.
Great. And I think you've just raised a awareness around joy, right? Like sometimes as a family, you just need to have a good time.
Absolutely.
You need to put away the homework and, principles, but put away the work, put away the phone, put away and just have fun, right? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
just being in the moment, and I think that's what that event will do for families. I've experienced it before, and it is just pure joy. It's just, that's what it's about, right?
That's what we're hoping.
Awesome. Very cool. And really great memories for families. So thank you so much for your work, for what you do every day to support our students and our parents. We really just couldn't do it without you. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, parents, for joining us on mental health awareness and learning more about it and how you can support your family and spread the word with your friends and family as well. We'll see you next time.